Hello and welcome to Hot Issues. This week we are having a conversation about elections, about the new patriotic party and many things. And we're going to have this conversation with a personality who has been missing from the public view for some time. I'm going to find out what is it that took him out of the public view for all of this time. Welcome to Hot Issues. Hello and welcome back to Hot Issues, and we are talking about the new patriotic party. We are talking about elections generally in the country. Is there the need for electoral reform? What is the basis of the advocacy for electoral reform? What has happened in other places? Would all of these things inform Ghana's elections in 2016? And we are particularly privileged to have with us in the studio a gentleman who perhaps needs no introduction at all, Mr. Phillip Addison, lead counsel for the new patriotic party in the election petition. So you're welcome to the studio.
Thank you. Thank you for your kind words.
Yes, sir. Now, is it true that you are developing an interest in contesting a parliamentary seat for the new patriotic party?
That is so. It's very true. I'm eyeing the seat in Korle-Klottey constituency.
Why have you developed this interest?
Well, I've come to a realization that if the MPP as a party is to achieve its aim of taking over the governance of this country, then they will need to win more seats. And I believe strongly that the Korle-Klottey seat is one of those seats that they can take back.
But already there was somebody there who contested on the ticket of the party. Is it a case that you don't have a lot of confidence in the person?
Well, it is not for me to say, actually. I think that I come with from a fresh perspective, which I think will cut across all lines. And it is on this basis that I have offered myself.
And you are confident?
Well, from the little forays I've done on the ground, I'm quite confident that it will fly.
What in the forays convinces you that you would be the Member of Parliament for Korle-Klottey?
Yes. As a matter of fact, so many overtures were made to me. And so I did not just get up and say I wanted to stand. People made appeals to me from all quarters. And having considered them, having gone down to get a feel of what it is, I came to the conclusion that it may be worth my while and may be to the advantage of the party if I stood. That is when I took the decision.
Well, even though you were lead counsel for the new patriotic party, not many people associated you with that party. When did you become a member?
I've been a member since the inception of the party in 1992. We have always worked in the background. So, but for the television, the telecast of the petition, I'm sure again nobody would have known me, as we have done so many cases before then. But there was no television coverage. It was the TV that has somehow exposed me, as it were.
But how come that you could be a member of a party like the MPP so quietly? How come? Why were you not seen in the front lines and so on? Why were you in the background?
Well, actually, I think those who have been in the party for some time are aware that I was very much part of it. In 92, when Edu Bawhin was our candidate, Nana Akufo-Addo was the campaign manager, and I was with Nana throughout the country. So those who started in the beginning know of me. Again, in 2000, I was part of the team that campaigned. We brought Edu Mante and campaigned, and he won the constituency, which I'm now seeking to represent. So I know the constituency very well.
Now, how come that the new patriotic party is the party of your preference? Not the GCPP, not the PNC, not the CPP, and not the many other parties that we have. How come that the new patriotic party is your party of preference?
Well, it is my party of preference because I share the ideals of that party. Basically, free market, private ownership, rule of law, what have you. I basically share the ideology of that party, and that is why I'm identifying with them.
But all the other parties claim to believe in these ideas, except perhaps the Convention People's Party.
I do not think that all the parties share the same ideas with the NPP. There are quite some differences, and I think that I'm on also for with the NPP. Yeah.
What are the differences that you see? I mean, between and amongst the parties, what are the differences?
Well, the NDC says it's a social democratic party, whatever that means. I don't quite identify with that. Of course, the CPP, as you say, there's quite some difference. They believe in the ideology of Nkrumah. I still haven't studied that ideology, but so I think I'll stick with what I'm familiar with, which is the NPP.
And in real practical terms, what does believe in free market and so on translate into?
Well, you see, when people own things, their approach to those things is different. You see, when there's private enterprise, you see the people work hard when they own it, as opposed to when it is owned by the state. Then it's like they are all guests or something. There's no attachment, there's no commitment. And that is why we say private enterprises just brings out the enterprise and development in people. It develops the nation. Because when one man is successful, is able to employ more people. It brings, I mean, this is a very simplified version, but basically that is the idea.
I like the sophisticated version. Maybe that will make things a little more clear.
Well, like I said, when there's private enterprise, there's more commitment. And when one individual is successful, he's able to employ and pull more people from the poverty rate. And therefore, the society as a whole also improves their standard of living. That is what I'm talking about.
But it's private enterprise, not its motive. Is it not for private profit? As opposed to social profit?
It is for private profit.
Private monetary profit as opposed to social profit?
It is for private profit. But when individuals are wealthy, they are happy, they look at the community as a whole. And therefore the community, the standard of living itself in the community is raised.
But that's a matter of choice. The individual has a choice to spend his money on community initiatives or to keep the profit for himself.
That is
or
true.
Sometimes to allow the profits to rot in the bank.
That is true. But you agree with me that even in our setting presently, there's so many places that people are raising funds to so many charitable organizations. People approach you and so on. So once you're wealthy, you have enough for yourself, you'll be inclined to look to others.
Now, if this is the philosophy you believe in so firmly, why don't you stay in private practice? Why are you getting involved with parliament and state affairs and so on?
Yes, that's a very good question. The reason why I'm abandoning for the time being is that, well, we're in this country, we see how everything is going, and we think that the economy is not really on a sound footing. We have parliament where laws are being passed. Loan agreements are going before parliament and they are passing. And we think that we need people who can scrutinize some of these loans carefully. I'm not for a minute suggesting that those in parliament now are not doing that. But I think that we need more people there. As I said, the NPP presently is in the minority. We need to get more people into parliament so that it will not be a walkover for one side.
But don't we also need a lot more people in private practice? I mean, being lead counsel for electing petitions and so on, fighting for the human rights of our people outside parliament. Don't we need a lot more people also in that area?
Well, I believe that being a member of parliament does not preclude me still from practicing as a barrister. So that is not lost at all.
So you're not abandoning private practice, as you indicated before?
Well, it will not be on a full scale as before, because my responsibility first will be to Parliament when I'm elected.
I see. Now, what do you bring to Parliament? What is it that you're going to bring to parliamentary, work? What are you bringing on board?
Well, I think first and foremost the job of a parliamentarian is to make laws. And being a lawyer, I think it is an area that I'm quite conversant with. So I'm bringing my perspective to add to those that are already in Parliament. And also to articulate position of the constituency that I represent.
We all understand that the struggle for parliamentary seats can sometimes get very, very uncomforting and even sometimes dirty. Are you ready?
Well, I understand that once I've decided to take this step, I should be ready for everything, and I am. Yes, I am.
You're ready to do all the things that are associated with
me to do. No, not for me to do.
Yeah.
I thought the question was whether I'm ready to withstand all those dirty things. And I say, yes, I'm ready to face it.
I see. Now, what about the state of your party? How prepared is your party for the election?
Well, I think this is early days yet. We're yet to even have primaries. And it's after the primaries that I believe we'll start gearing up for it. It's a year and a half away. Yes.
Yeah, but there were arguments in the party that the early election of a flag bearer, a presidential candidate, would enable the party to start its campaign much, much earlier and give the party advantages. The flag bearer was elected last year.
Yes. Well, so that gives recognition to the flag bearer wherever he goes, so that notwithstanding that parliamentarians have not been elected, once the leader is known, wherever he goes, he gets that recognition. And that is important. It means everywhere he goes, he's getting publicity.
Has a campaign message emerged yet? All these months, after the election of the flag bearer, has a campaign message emerged yet?
Not that I'm aware of presently. I think the flag bearer is putting in place a team, and we are all waiting.
Yeah, but given your stature, your public stature, your stature within the party and so on, if you're not aware of a clear message for the election at this time, wouldn't you say that there's a problem?
No, I wouldn't say so. I think that there's still some time to go. It is important that all factions of the party come together, brainstorm, and come out with something that will be catchy and at the same time meaningful.
What are the planks? What will be the planks of the NPP's campaign for 2016?
Well, basically, the main aim of the party is to become the next government, right? So we have to produce an alternative plan to what we are seeing presently, which we think is a complete failure. We will need to address some of the major challenges that are confronting us now.
What are the major challenges?
Well, first of all, we have the issue of utilities. Recently, utility bills were increased, even though they are in very short supply. They've been increased. It's a huge challenge. We have a challenge of education. People are not able to pay fees. And then the various social interventions that were introduced earlier by the MPP are all now at a standstill in arrears. And these are matters that we have to look at critically.
Social interventions, which ones?
School feeding program. We're talking about the LEAP. And there are quite a number. You see, if these things were being operated efficiently, I think it would have lessened the hardships that people are going through now.
But there's a claim that the school feeding program has been expanded. It's covering more schools than happened under the NPP.
Well, I'm happy you said there is a claim, because so many things have been claimed. And when you go down there, you see that it is only a claim and nothing more.
Have you gone down there? What did you see?
I have not gone down. I'm saying I'm happy that you use the word if there is a claim, and that you did not see it emphatically.
Mm-hmm.
The truth of the matter is that the school feeding program is in arrears. Now, what is the meaning of expanding it when the thing is in arrears and children are being malnourished?
Been in arrears.
I'm not aware of that.
It's always been in arrears from the Kufuor era.
I'm not aware of that, and I've not heard as much complaint as I'm hearing now.
What about the other social interventions?
Everything is in arrears. We don't know what has happened to the money, when in fact there are laws saying that these monies should be transferred, and yet they are in arrears.
You're talking about the statutory
deductions, payments, and so on.
like Get Fund.
Yes.
What is the situation of the Get Fund now?
Well, I'm informed that all those statutory payments are in arrears. And I think it is unfortunate because, you see, I have a lot of difficulty with some of these things. Maybe not having the full facts. One would say maybe I'm naive. But I think that when there are statutory stipulations, they ought to be obeyed. Otherwise, we become a lawless country. They ought to be obeyed. You know, we go to Parliament, a government presents a budget, it is read, it is debated, passed. Then what happens? The budget is overrun with impunity. So why do we even go to Parliament with a budget? That's the question I keep asking. Why do we go through all these motions? Because then the government should be left to spend as it likes. Because at the end of the day, whatever is passed will not be adhered to. You see other countries where governments are on the verge of shutting down because the Congress has not passed any bill to increase.
They're talking about the United States of
exactly.
America.
That is where there's rule of law. It's within the boundary that has been passed by Congress. We don't have it here. So why do we go through the motion?
But is it true that in the United States there is the rule of law?
Well, now you're introducing...
Because you said it and I want to test it, you know.
But there is the rule of law. We cannot compare there to here. I don't like making even comparisons between United States and there is the rule of law.
Where people are arrested for 15 years, they are not subjected to trial, they are not subjected to any due process. 15 years in Guantanamo Bay.
Well, that is a completely different situation. It is a completely different situation. And it is a completely different argument. We are not talking of mainland United States or United States citizens. That is what I'm talking about.
Oh, so we can make the distinction between mainland United States and...
Well, there's a completely different argument.
Offshore United States.
There's a completely different argument for that, for Guantanamo Bay. Although I'm not in agreement with these incarcerations of these people for a very long time, there are arguments that can be made for that. I think Obama promised that he will let them out, but unfortunately they are still there. But as I said, when I talk of the rule of law in the United States of America, I mean mainland United States affecting United States citizens.
Oh, okay. I understand. Now, there has been some turmoil in your party.
Turmoil. You may have to give me further and better particulars.
Oh, party members storming party headquarters, sometimes with implements and offensive weapons, and attacking themselves and so on. Is that not an indication of turmoil?
I do not think so at all. I think there were a few misguided elements, and they have been brought under control. I think people now understand themselves. I think in the initial stages, because there was a new administration, a new chairman, new general secretary, these things happen in the transition. A lot of misunderstandings. But I think that, by and large, these matters have been settled.
A week or two ago, there were also demonstrations in the party headquarters against decisions that were allegedly made by the National Council.
Yes. I think that it is good because it's a group of people that met on behalf of the party. Decisions were taken and the rank and file were not satisfied with it. They exercised their democratic right to a demonstration. It came to the notice of those who took the decision. And I believe today they have reviewed that decision. That's the beauty of this party.
What did you think about those decisions, you know, as a serious party member?
Well, I think I've been asked this a few times, and my position is that they are all very laudable objectives. But I didn't think that it should have come out the way it did, because I still have a niggling doubt as to their constitutionality. But I think they are laudable, and maybe we should have used informal channels to address it.
Well, your party is supposed to be a party of lawyers, a party of Democrats, and so on. Yes. How come that they can take decisions, you know, which involve tingling doubts about their constitutionality?
Well, you see, I said that I had something. I wasn't emphatic. You should know that there were lawyers in that meeting.
Yeah.
And sometimes lawyers disagree. So I take a certain position. Somebody will think, no, it's not unconstitutional. So I'm sure some people must have raised these issues and others must have had counter arguments. So that's what happens, especially in a large body like that. So it is not an absolute statement of mine that it is unconstitutional.
But tingling doubts.
And some others don't have any doubt at all.
Welcome back to Hot Issues, and we are in conversation with Mr. Phillip Addison, a lawyer and now a politician, or if you like, political activist. And I'm quite sure that none of you finds him strange. He's been with us on our screens during the election petition as lead counsel for the New Patriotic Party. Now, sir, we're talking about some of the happenings in your party. There have been a few instances where persons acting as spokespersons or leaders of the party have made statements that are very, very discomforting. Is there a mechanism for dealing with this situation? Statements which could potentially also cost you votes.
Maybe if you could tell me some of these statements, I'll be...
One of the statements has to do with the fact that a member is alleged to have claimed that only 5 regions, produce the resources of Ghana, and therefore only 5 persons from those regions are qualified to lead this country.
Yes.
And then ethnocentric statements and so on. Is there a mechanism within your party for dealing with these?
First of all, I must say that it is unfortunate, the leakage of that meeting. I mean, that sometimes when you have these very confidential meetings, given the group within which you are having these meetings, certain statements are made which is not meant for public consumption. And so when these statements are leaked in the manner in which they are, of course it creates a lot of problems. Because we all do when we have our private meetings, say things that we do not intend it to be for public consumption. And therefore, when these leakages come out, people have to take it with that in mind, that these matters were not meant for public consumption. I think it's very, very important for people to appreciate that fact, that whoever said what he is supposed to have said would definitely not have stood in a public platform to say that, and that he thought it was a confidential meeting among people he could trust. And that is about it. We all have things we say privately in our rooms, which we will not dare say outside. You see.
But are these leaks?
They are.
But if they are leaks, where would the leaks be coming from? Party members, party leaders.
That is why I said it is unfortunate, especially given the level of people who were meeting. It is really unfortunate, you see.
But if even there are leaks, should party leaders be thinking like that, even if they were leaks?
That's what I'm saying. That
even if they were in private, should party leaders, even in private, be thinking like that?
That's what I'm saying, that as for the things that people say and do in private, there's so many things that cannot be done in public. So if you ask me, should he be thinking like this in private? That would be my answer to you, that we all do. We all say things that we will not dare say in public. And therefore you cannot hold that person to it. If that person stands on the public platform and utters those words, that is when you can take that person on.
But which of these are we to take seriously? Things that people say in confidence amongst colleagues and trusted people, and the things that they say on platform, which one should be taken more seriously?
I think that the public statement clearly indicates the stand of that person, and it's something that he believes he wants to be held to in public.
That's your view?
That is my view.
Now, what about those who make public statements on public platforms, for example, attacking other ethnic groups, or even sometimes attacking party leaders and so on?
Yes, I think that is unfortunate. That should not happen, because there are channels to do these things. You have a problem with a decision taken by party leadership, there are channels to do so. And I think that for the purposes of party cohesion and discipline, it's better to use party channels to resolve your differences rather than go to a public platform and publicly chastise the leaders.
Now, how come that the party itself is not able or does not appear able to discipline party stalwarts who bring the party into dispute?
I'm not too sure whether the issue is they are not able to do so. I guess I do not know what really goes into it, but I think there are other considerations. But it is not because they are unable to discipline certain party members. And maybe other channels, other informal channels are used to address some of these infractions.
Now, what convinces you, because you sound pretty confident that the New Patriotic Party may win the 2016 elections? Will win the 2016 elections. What makes you so confident?
Well, because the New Patriotic Party won the 2012 elections when things were not so bad. And therefore, the New Patriotic Party will repeat.
Why is the presidential candidate not in the Flagstaff House if he won the election?
Well, we all know what happened.
What happened?
You saw the petition.
Yes.
You saw the evidence that was produced.
Yes.
Yes, there's a verdict that came out.
Mm-hmm.
But we know in our heart of hearts that the MPP won.
The Supreme Court disagreed with you.
I know that the Supreme Court disagreed.
So you didn't win. If you had won, you'd be in government and not in opposition.
I said we had used sufficient evidence, and in the court of public opinion, they know who won.
No, but the Supreme Court had to agree with you for you to win. If the Supreme Court did not agree with you, you didn't win.
I agree with you that the Supreme Court did not agree with us.
Mm-hmm.
I said court of public opinion.
How do you determine that?
How do you determine the court of public opinion?
Sure.
By a preponderance of the expression from different people from all walks of life.
What is the empirical basis for making this assertion?
All over, the mass media, all over.
Is that the empirical basis?
Yes.
How?
That's what I just told you. Social media, what have you, all over.
Preponderance.
Mm-hmm.
But that preponderance has no real weight.
I agree with you. You said the Supreme Court disagreed. I agree with you on that.
Mm-hmm.
But in the court of public opinion, and we ourselves, we know from the evidence that was adduced.
Now, let us assume that you are right. Let us assume, for the sake of this conversation, that you are right. How can you prevent a situation in which you actually win the election but cannot form the government?
Good question. We, through the petition, we have all seen what happened. And one big lesson from the petition is that elections are won or lost at the polling station. First of all, the caliber of people who man the various polling stations left so much to be desired, from the presiding officer to the polling agents. Most of them, I believe, were not literate. Some couldn't even write their names. Some were not even literate in numerals and couldn't write it. It was an unfortunate situation. So I think that issue has to be addressed. We have to get people who are literate, can read and write, to man the polling stations. That is key.
The LPP have been competing in elections since 1992. 1991, as a matter of fact. 1992. Now, how come that it only took the electoral petition for NPP to realize that elections are won at the polling station level?
Well, you know, a lot of things happened. Manipulation, what have you. And also because there was a change in the law in respect of polling agents. You know, the previous law considered polling agents as part of the electoral outfit, and therefore they could vote the day before the main election. Now, because that was the case previously, you were able to distribute your agents to where you think you are seriously challenged, areas where you think you are seriously challenged. But because the law was amended and polling agents had to vote on the same day, it means you couldn't transfer your best resources around. Everybody had to be where he has registered. So if you have a particular location in which you do not really have solid materials, you are fixed with it. That is one of the reasons.
But if you also had good material in all your polling stations, you didn't have to ship them around to get the best results.
I can tell you that in certain polling stations you don't. If you don't, you don't.
You were training polling agents. What kind of training were you giving them?
Well,
and you recruited the polling agents yourself. So if you recruited polling agents who could not write their own names and so on, who are you blaming?
No, in respect of the polling agents, we cannot blame anybody. That one, we cannot blame anybody. It is our doing, and we've learned a great lesson there. Yes.
Where can you blame others?
The presiding officers, for instance. A lot of them were not qualified to be presiding officers.
So who takes the blame?
I think it's quite obvious who does. It is very, very obvious who should take that blame. It is the Electoral Commission.
And what are we doing about all of these problems that you identify?
Well, I hope that these issues coming out of the petition through the evidence that was adduced and also from the judgment of the court, there will be a review of these things by all the parties together with the Electoral Commission, so we'll find a way solving these things and moving forward. You see, at the end of the day, the aim of elections should be for the choice of the people to manifest itself. And when this is done in a clear, transparent, and fair manner, everybody will go along with it. That is it.
2 years have passed.
Yes.
What has happened?
Well, you know the intransigence of the Electoral Commission. You know, he recently again, because of his intransigence, he alone will not heed to any advice, goes ahead with these district assembly elections. And look at the result. Another financial loss to the state. So this is the situation in which we are. We have an Electoral Commission that does not listen to anybody. And he is stubborn as he is now, because he was not chastised by the Supreme Court in the petition, when clearly he is the cause of all the problems we have. We're going to print 2 sets of pink sheets, the first time in the history of this country. And that's the result. So he is the stumbling block.
Now let us assume that you are right. Let us assume that you are right. You have an intransigent electoral commissioner. You have an intransigent electoral commissioner who does not listen to anybody, who does what he wants and so on. 2 years have passed. In 1 year, you're going for elections. What happens? Are there no remedies?
Well, there are remedies. There are remedies. First of all, I believe that this Electoral Commission, it's about time he steps aside. I think his time is up. We need to have a new Electoral Commission in place so that we can move forward. There's nothing new that a Farijan can do. He's so discredited, nobody trusts him. And his time is up. I think he should step aside for a new person to come in.
You mean he's going on retirement?
That is so.
So he's not stepping aside, he's going on retirement.
If you choose to use that word.
But what makes you feel or believe that the problem is one person when it's a commission? Which means that all the commissioners act together and arrive at decisions together. Why do you single out one person?
Well, I do not know the internal workings of the Electoral Commission. I agree with you, it's a commission, but it's always identified with one person. And from my experience with him in the petition, it is quite clear that the decisions are taken by him alone.
How come? How do you come to such a conclusion?
From my interaction with him in the court, he took decisions alone.
What in the court makes you believe that he took decisions alone?
For instance, when things were transmitted to the strong room or so on, the final declaration of results are authorized by him alone.
On behalf of the commission?
So he acts alone. That is the point I'm making.
He's acting on behalf of the commission. He's not
Yes,
acting
but
alone.
that is what he does with everything else. That's the point I was making, that he acts alone in the name of the commission, but he acts alone. It is not a question of the commission sitting around the table, everybody looking and satisfied. It's him alone.
Did you have any situation where commission members were complaining about arbitrariness or taking decisions single-handedly and so on? Did you have any such occasion?
I didn't. I'm just telling you.
So it is conjecture?
It's not conjecture. I'm just telling you my interaction with him in the court, and his answers clearly show that he took decisions alone. The transcripts are there. You can have a look at it.
So please refresh our memories.
That's what I'm saying. And I'm giving you an example of the results, which are faxed through. He looks at them and he authorizes their publication alone.
But the procedure in the so-called strong room is not like what you are describing. The results come through the faxes. They are authenticated by party agents. They are signed by party agents as being correct before they even get to the electoral commissioner.
So he alone sanctions it.
After party agents
He
have
alone.
verified
The issue is
and accepted
whether
them.
he does in consultation with he alone.
No, but when party agents say that the results are correct, what
But
else can anybody
then
do?
if it's party agents who take that decision, then they should be running the electoral commission and not him.
Okay.
Because then it means that he has no discretion. Is that what you're saying?
Now, what are the specific reforms that you would like to see?
Well, I told you about the issue of the polling agents. It's very important.
The quality.
The quality, and also the polling agents should also be recognized as part of the electoral staff and given proper training. You see, when the election comes, the results, it's in the interest of everybody that things are done properly, clearly, and fairly. So they are all given training across the board. Now, there's a serious issue with the register. That clearly needs to be looked at. We need to have a new clean register. That is also very important.
What are those issues with the register?
It is bloated.
How come?
It is bloated.
What is the basis of this conclusion?
I think the argument has been made time without number. Analysis have been made by people far more qualified than me that given the population that we have, we cannot have the kind of register that we are having. And we, in a way, also demonstrated that it was bloated during the petition because we showed so many repetition of names. And so to that extent, it is bloated.
So what is your recommendation for dealing with what you call the bloated voters?
We should have a completely new register, and there's still sufficient time to do that. We should have a completely new register. You see, the thing is that I do not understand why we should have double registration, because this is a register that is supposed to take about what do they call it? Our biological details. You know, it's a bio listing. So if you have gone to register and your thumbprint has been taken and all that, how can anybody again come and register in your name or your name appear again? It just baffles me.
A few people were arrested and prosecuted for double registration.
Well, you said a few.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that is what it remains, a few. But do you know how many are in the register?
How many? How many are in the register?
I cannot say offhand, but I said we demonstrated it. But there are still a lot.
About how many, roughly?
About how many? Quite a number. But we did not go, because we did not have the time to, our burden was to demonstrate that it is not as they say it is, that it is clean. It's not possible to have these things, because they denied it, and we proved it that it was so.
Okay. Beyond the polling agents, beyond what happens at the polling stations, which you have spoken about, what other reforms would you like to see before 2016?
Yes. Pink sheets. There should be only one set of pink sheets. They should all have serial numbers that correspond to the polling station, unique to each polling station. He said he did not order it, the printers that put it there. I don't know how come. But now it should be compulsory. And it should be linked to a polling station so that each pink sheet identifies with a particular polling station. And there should not be a duplicate.
What problem does that cure?
Oh, because there was a lot of mix-up of pink sheets that had serial numbers but which appeared in different polling stations. We clearly showed that they were distributed to people who wrote on it. And it created a mess. It created a lot of mess. And this time around, if they are made unique to the polling station, nobody can take one pink sheet from there and take it somewhere else to rewrite results. It will not be possible.
Okay. So, quality of polling agents, unique pink sheets, they could be blue, they could be yellow or whatever. But unique sheets, peculiar to polling stations. What else?
We talk of a new register. We talk of the polling agents being part of the electoral setup, right? And then we come to these devices. I don't know, but I was told that these devices have a limited period when they can function. It was 6 hours, 7 hours, whatever. And apparently the Electoral Commission was aware. Somehow this information was not communicated to the presiding officers. And some of them continued using this machine well beyond the limit assigned to it. So we need to look at it. If we're going to maintain these same machines, then we need to have 2 at each polling station.
Backup machine.
A backup for each one. You see, it should not be a case in which we have backup for a few stations, and therefore when one breaks down somewhere, then they have to wait till the next day, that kind of thing.
Hello, and welcome back to Hot Issues. And we are very privileged to have with us Mr. Phillip Addison, lead counsel for the New Patriotic Party in the electoral petition, and also an aspiring parliamentary candidate for the New Patriotic Party. So how are the primaries shaping out? There was news about some decisions which have been made about qualification, to contest for the primaries, and affirmative action for young people, affirmative action for women, and so on. How are the primaries shaping out?
Well, I think everything's coming up fine. There's been a lot of excitement, and that is why the first announcement that was made about the affirmative action met a lot of resistance, especially, surprisingly, from women who thought that women can fight on their own steam. I've already told you my views on the affirmative action, but I understand that there has been a review, and I think it's been withdrawn. Yes.
What about affirmative action for youth?
I think that stands. I think that stands. I have not heard anything about that. I have not heard anything about that.
So you're a lawyer, and it appears that you love your profession. What about this suggestion that the office of the Attorney General should be decoupled from the Minister of Justice?
Yes, I really do not buy that. You see, it is not the office that makes the person. It is the person that makes the office. If you have a man who is independent-minded, who understands the position for that office, he has all the powers at his disposal and will insist on the right thing being done. And it does not matter whether it's divided into 3 or 1. Yes. It just needs somebody who is strong, who is on top of it, who is independent, and can take decisions and defend it. That is all. Because you will divide it and the result might be the same. If you have somebody who is weak and cannot take this and is in a separate office, he's been given all the independence, and still nothing will work.
Independent, strong-minded, and so on. How can you sit in cabinet and be opposed to decisions of that cabinet?
Well, I think that the Attorney General is the advisor. So when an issue comes up, the Attorney General advises on it. If anybody goes contrary to that decision and there are consequences for it, you will have to answer for that.
I've read the 1992 Constitution, and there's no coupling of the 2 positions.
There's no coupling.
Yeah. You can have a Minister of Justice and have an Attorney General, and it would not be against the provisions in the Constitution.
It will not be. And that's the point I'm saying, that it is not so much the decoupling or whatever they're talking about, but it is the individual. Because yes, if you have a separate Minister of Justice and he's not able to take decisions, stand on his feet, defend his positions, the result will be the same.
Are you likely to be the next Attorney General of Ghana?
I would not like to speculate on anything of the sort. I think that is the prerogative of the President. And
the President knows you very well. You represented him in the electoral petition.
Yes, he knows me
no
very
doubt
well
about your competence as a lawyer.
Well,
why won't you be the next Attorney General?
Well, somebody represented President Mahama. He's not the Attorney General.
If you were offered the position of Attorney General, would you reject it?
I will not reject it.
Why won't you reject it?
I will not reject it because I think you have just asked me about the issue of decoupling the positions. And I have always believed that if you have somebody who is independent-minded, who is strong, he can defend his positions, you find that there is no need for decoupling anything.
And you find yourself strong and independent-minded?
With all humility, I think so.
Well, so thank you very much for coming. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you too.
And having seen you for many, many years.
That is true.
Not like this.
That's true.
Well, viewers, we've just been in a conversation with Mr. Phillip Addison. He was lead counsel for the New Patriotic Party in the election petition, and now appears quite determined to become a member of Parliament. As I always say, the best comes to you from TV3. Best in news, best in current affairs, best in sports, best in entertainment. Keep your dial here until we meet again. It's goodbye from all of us from TV3. Bye-bye.